This year, 2020, will be remembered for many things. The coronavirus pandemic, riots and looting. And then, of course, there are some of the politicians who, under threat of arrest, took away your freedom. Your freedom to run a business, your freedom to sing in church, your freedom to let your children play on a playground. Those, however, are all things that you see. You see them every day. What is equally important has been what you no longer see, what has been disappearing. 2020 may well be notable as the year of the greatest censorship in the history of the country. Today, videos made by conservatives showing rioting and looting are marked as potentially inappropriate by YouTube. Videos made by liberals showing similar scenes are allowed to run freely. Conservative news sites, such as Daily Caller and Breitbart, have seen their Google traffic plummet, while liberal news organizations like CNN and the Washington Post are displayed prominently. Wikipedia's co-founder, Larry Sanger, recently wrote an essay titled simply, "Wikipedia is badly biased." It is. Wikipedia has admitted that they do not have a neutral point of view. They aren't even pretending any longer. These collective efforts represent one of the greatest suppressions of articles, viewpoints, essays, and opinions at any time in American history. In America, we used to believe that ideas, even ones that we disagreed with, should see the light of day. But today, your big tech censors just bury stories they don't like. And it's not just that conservative views are suppressed, it's also that conservatives are lied about. Accusations are made. The truth is distorted and then promoted. Remember the Russia collusion hoax? Remember Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation? Conservatives were lied about. This kind of censorship and suppression has happened before in American history. Today, Google carries over 90% of the search engine traffic in the country. We think that this is a new phenomenon. But in many ways, it's similar to the time when the United States Postal Service carried almost all of the nation's mail and pamphlets and newspapers. And just like today, there were certain views that were outlawed. There was a time in the 1830s and 1840s when the U.S. Postmaster General refused to allow abolitionist pamphlets to be carried into slave states. There was a time during World War I when Woodrow Wilson's administration pushed the Sedition Act, which made it an offense to speak against the war effort. If you were against slavery, you were censored. Against the war, censored. Today, if you're conservative, censored. The argument for censorship is always the same. The people who push censorship think that they are smarter than you and should do your thinking for you. In the 1890s and early 1900s, the country was dominated by yellow journalism. Sensationalism, fake sources, scare headlines, exaggerations, scandal-mongering. Sound familiar? But there were a very few, courageous and quality journalists. Theodore Roosevelt praised them. They brought attention to the inhuman conditions in coal mines, abusive practices in the meatpacking industry, child labor. Their work was not part of the mainstream yellow horde. Instead, they made the country better. It's worth noting that these men and women are the only journalists that we remember from that time. Yet they were a small few. Well, it's the same today. There's a great herd of yellow journalism and a small few, who oppose it and seek the truth. The truth today is not Democrat or Republican. It is rare. It's sometimes hopeful to take a look back. When we do, we see that history's mob of yellow journalists have all faded away, and the censors are rightly reviled. We've made it through periods of great censorship before. We'll make it through again. We did it because there were a few courageous voices willing to stand against the mob. Good for us at this, our moment in history. We have those courageous voices with us today. And now it's time to pay tribute. This is a country built by real American heroes. And here on Actionable Intelligence, we honor the men and women who serve on the front lines. We share stories of courage and sacrifice of sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, friends and neighbors. Our hero tonight is United States Marine Corps First Lieutenant Travis Manion. Manion made the ultimate sacrifice 13 years ago while on his second tour of duty while protecting his team in Iraq. I served with Travis. He was a proud Marine, and he remains, because of the work of the Travis Manion Foundation, a role model for younger generations. Semper Fi, Travis Manion.